Welcome to the Breakfast Leadership Show, where we interview global thought leaders on business, leadership, and life. Here's your host, keynote speaker, best-selling author, and chief burnout officer of the Breakfast Leadership Network, Michael Levitt.
Welcome back. I've got Steve Hasty on the line. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am doing really good today. Really looking forward to this chat. So for those that aren't aware of what you do, why don't you share a little about you, and then we'll dive into this conversation.
Sounds good. I'm an entrepreneur. I own an awards company called Hasty Awards, which specializes in swimming awards. And through that relationship, I was able to develop an interest in Swimming World magazine. And so my latest adventure has been partnering up with Jack Callahan to purchase the magazine and kind of take it into a more modern era.
That's awesome. And anybody that says, magazines are going to die are completely wrong, because the local bookstore that's across the street from me, their magazine section is still pretty robust, and they rotate out the stock a lot. And even with digital and, being able to look at it on your phone or your tablet or even on your computer, it's just an additional avenue of people to consume. For me, I'll pick up a magazine. Sometimes I'll read one on my digital tablet. Sometimes I'll pick up the actual tactile made of paper version, and it's not exclusive. And whenever people say, "Oh, this is going to die," like for example, conferences back during the pandemic, when they said, "Oh, everything's just going to be virtual now," and like, it's not going to be that. But don't turn away from the virtual either, because that's an additional audience that you have now. So that's good. And I'm curious. It's like, so what was the thinking behind acquiring this magazine and doing the effort to bring it up to more modern times when it comes to distribution and the content and everything else you're doing with it?
Well, swimming's been in my veins ever since I was a kid. I grew up in a household where my father was a swim coach. So swimming was a part of our everyday life. And one of the things that came with that, swimming in the 70s, was this magazine that would show up once a month. And on the cover of would be your, the teams and the swimmers that you were following. And so really the Bible of swimming kind of just became a part of my life. And as I transitioned out of swimming, it was still my go-to source just to find out what was going on and to keep track of it. Like most people, swimming is very popular every 4 years when it's at the Olympic Games. And so it was just something that I always kept in touch with. Well, I was fortunate enough to be asked to be on the board at the Swimming Hall of Fame and down in Fort Lauderdale. And part of what they, in that period of time, they had acquired the magazine, or the magazine was donated to them. And so I got to be kind of on the front lines of what it takes to run the magazine. And it became obvious that in order for it to get more modern and to be more relevant, it was going to need to basically change from being owned by a nonprofit. It was there was a tremendous opportunity there for someone such as myself. The only missing ingredient was somebody who knew how to run a magazine, and that's where my partner Jack Callahan came in, and it felt right from the start.
That's beautiful, and I love stories, especially for well-established things. So in this case, a publication, you grew up with this magazine being in your household. I think of, growing up in my household, my dad worked for the auto sector. So Motor Trend and Hot Rod magazine and other magazines would be in there, and just, it would be a staple. It's one of those things too, is you walk by a magazine rack, and when your brain recognizes symbols or patterns or things that you're familiar with. So I could skim a magazine rack and just, kind of look and all that stuff. But there's certain magazines like Motor Trend, for example, that will jump out at me right away just because I understand. I see the font, the colors, everything like that. Same thing goes with the Batman logo, for example. I love Batman ever since I was a little kid. So I can, see something, and all of a sudden I see a symbol of it, and my brain goes, "Hey, you know that. So it's the same thing. It becomes part of you. And the fact that you were able to take a magazine that has a legacy and a history to it and, bring it up to speed, especially in, demand of how popular it is, especially, around the Olympics. But I would argue even more so now with the advent of streaming services and cable and all that stuff, people are able to watch more of it. They want to consume more of it. You see it in other sports too that are Olympic based, that, the trials, the championships, and all those other things that they go through, people want to consume that because they love the sport. They love the build up to it. And to be able to have a publication like this that can keep you up to date on latest trends, what the athletes are doing, the stories. And I think that's one of the things too that really resonates with readers is, okay, what's the backstory of these great Olympic swimmers or these people that are trying to qualify the Olympics? What were some of the challenges that they had to overcome in order to be one of the best on the planet? And, it's just, I think we just naturally gravitate to greatness. We love seeing it and people overcoming things. And I'm thrilled that you took the opportunity to, bring this, magazine and continue it on its journey and to evolve to where it needs to be today.
Yeah, it's been, it's been, Jack and I refer to this, that we get to do our favorite hobby every day. And it's, because for both of us, Jack swam at University of Villanova for 4 years. He was fortunate to swim a little bit longer than I was, but still being a part of the community, both in other aquatic sports like water polo and as well as master swimming. We wake up every day just having fun with it, and being, I think owning a legacy brand has probably been that's been the easiest part of it. There are still so many people who not only remember the magazine, but the swimming community is such a small family of people who, you know, that it make since we have this amazing brand that's been a part of so many people's lives, it has made the growth, and it's made some of the technology advancements very simple. It's been fantastic.
It's a great resource for people that want to know more about swimming and what it takes. And we talked briefly in the pre-show. It's like the timing of this interview because I went swimming yesterday, and one of the things that I noticed in my adult life with swimming, and you picked up on it probably much earlier than I did, was, and I do a lot of work in stress relief and burnout prevention and things like that. There's something about being in the water and they're just letting go and just becoming part of the water and letting it, just naturally float, like just, leaning your head back and, all of a sudden you're like, you're trying to lift up just one leg if you're learning how to, do the float and all, but just the nature of it, you're both your legs want to go up at the same time. So it's just because, but it's one of those things where when I was doing it, I did it yesterday. I'm just laying there, and it's one of those things where it's like I can't relate to a more relaxing state. And I'm thankful I can do that in a lot of different ways. But it was such a relaxing moment. It was like the world stopped. It was just me and water and just relaxing. So from an exercise standpoint, swimming is amazing. We know that there's plenty of documentation that your magazine covers a ton of it too. But from a stress management side of things, it's one of those things where I highly encourage people to do it. There's access to pools everywhere, or lakes if they're clean. There's plenty of places for you to get out there because you're using muscles you're not going to use otherwise. And it's also one of those singular things. Because if you really focus on being in the water or just being, it's such a amazing regenerative experience. It's almost like the fountain of youth in a way.
Agree.
And it's just I love being in the water. I'm very fortunate that in the condo building I live in, there's a pool on the third floor. So I don't have an excuse of not, going in there. It's like, oh yeah, my gym is on the same floor. So it's like, oh yeah, the commute to the gym, walk out the door,
Right.
push 3 on the elevator, ding, walk down the hall, I'm in. It's like, if I can't do that, then there's other issues. And I always tell people, some people have issues. I have subscriptions. So it's just one of those things. But it's such an amazing thing, excluding the sport of it and the competition, which is just amazing. And we know, the history of it and, all the great, medal award winning swimmers and those that, we see, sometimes just like in any sport, but especially with the Olympics, I love the Olympics. I just, it's one of those things where it's that moment in time where humanity comes together,
Mhm.
all with the same interest to watch and enjoy things together. And it's one of those reminders like, we could do that all the time and not just every 4 years. Could make this a daily habit for all of us to get
Right.
along better, to understand each other. Yes, we have differences. Yes, we have different opinions on things, but collectively, it's one of those unifying things that brings us all together. Doesn't matter of our political beliefs or religious beliefs or anything like that. It's all of us together in this sport to celebrate competition and celebrate winning and celebrating achievement and people overcoming things. That's why, I'm just getting chills thinking about it. And, swimming is obviously, of the Summer Olympics is one of the huge, huge draws because it's just, watching these people, it's like they shaved a tenth of a second off the world record. And you're like, how many months and years did they practice to save that? Like literally, you know,
Mhm.
and it's just a beautiful thing. And to be able to capture those stories in your magazine and share different insights and all of that, for me, again, and if it's not apparent, I'm a big fan of magazines and the content and the writers and whatnot. But I'm thrilled that you saw an opportunity and Jack saw an opportunity and you thought, hey, it's going to take this from the nonprofit that they were just, kind of doing it to keep it there, and let's bring it up a bit, and for the community and the subscribers, and for the overall arch of swimming in general. So I commend you for doing that, and I'm thankful that you have.
Yeah, it's been great. And, along with the brand came, a staff of reporters and writers that many of which have been doing this for 30 years. And so being able to hit the ground running with these people on staff who are all, very good at getting to the actual story itself, right? The part of what we love about the Olympics is each individual's story and how they got there. And, you talk about all the hours of practice and work that it took to set the new world record. Every one of those stories is different. Some of those people have done it since they've swam since they were 5 years old. Some of them didn't even start swimming until they were teenagers, maybe in high school. Each one of those individual storylines is just a really good story that I think everybody can relate to.
It's important, and again, the beauty of the Olympics is there's all those stories, and the thought that came to mind, it's not swimming, is years ago the Jamaican bobsledding team. Now,
Yeah.
when you tell a story like that, you say, talk about overcoming the odds. They have a weather related challenge in order to be successful in that, and you're like, the who? It's like where and how, and but you know what? If you're determined, you're going to overcome those obstacles. You're going to do what it takes, and that's why we love athletes that, just rise above and overcome the odds, because it's the hero's journey and we all love that. We all look for
We
that
do.
within ourselves. And I think swimming is one of those, life skills that are critically important. Two, it's one of those things that helps you from a physical standpoint and a mental standpoint. And two or three, it's amazing to watch athletes improve, and especially if you follow them over time, you may see an athlete that has been participating in 3 or 4 Olympics, and you're watching them get better and better, and then they finally get on the podium. And
Right.
you feel like a proud parent as a parent. You don't know the person at all. You don't know who they are. You know them, but you don't know them personally. But you're just so excited for them and their family, and understanding what it took to get there. And it's, again, that's where magazines do an amazing job of storytelling and really bringing people into it. And I think that's why it's so important that people like you recognize that as well and say, yes, there's an audience for this, and people want to be able to consume this. And I'm thankful that you did that. And going back to what you mentioned or a few moments ago about inheriting a team, my hunch is, as with any new ownership change, there was probably a little bit of apprehension at first by the team. But then I'm guessing correct me if I'm wrong, they were probably reinvigorated once they realized who bought the magazine, and your love and passion for swimming as a whole. I'm guessing that reinvigorated a lot of those writers, especially the ones that have been there for 30 years. They probably were giddy like it was their first day of writing again. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. Being an advertiser in the magazine for years, I think that most everybody knew who I was. And I think that not knowing Jack at first, but then hearing his background and where he had come from, and just the first few times that they would have spoke to him about all of the ideas that he had and the different directions to go in, not just covering the sport, which we do better than anybody else, but also, a vision for how the sport can influence everybody. It's swimming is a very healthy lifestyle. With that comes healthy eating and exercise that is done outside of the pool. And I think that our writers realized that not only was this going to be a continuation of what we've been doing, but there's going to be a new vision for how the sport can influence everyone. And so, yeah, there's been a lot of excitement and a lot of enjoyable phone calls. We're kind of scattered out all over the country, but we do find time, of course, at the events and things like that we cover to be together. But it's a great team, and like I said, they've been doing this for a long time through the ups and downs. They've been very committed to not just to the sport, but also to the magazine, and it's been wonderful. And we have people all over the world covering. We have a European person, we have someone in Australia. So we really are still the authority of news coming to the sport from around the world. And I will say it's a very exciting time. There are some amazing swims going on by not just the Americans, but many of the Europeans are yeah, they're producing times that I probably would have never thought were possible. And there's a connection with a lot of them. A lot of them swim college here in the United States, so they become somewhat familiar names. But yeah, it's been the timing has been perfect, really.
That's awesome. And again, it's, pardon the pun, but ride the wave on it, because it's the demand for it, from consumers, not just for the video content and watching the events, but the stories behind them, brings people closer together on it. And it gives them something, to look forward to and celebrate and enjoy. And it takes us away from the negativity that we see in the news and everything else.
Agreed.
It's a great place to, celebrate life and humanity and their skills and their gifts, and and even those that weren't necessarily gifted, but they worked their tail off to become some of the best ever. You just have to celebrate that. So, Steve, I've loved this conversation, and congratulations again on the success of the magazine and everything you're doing. Where can people find out more about you and all this amazing work you're doing?
Well, swimmingworld.com is where you can go. We've got a wonderfully clean look, and it's very easy to navigate through our website and to get all the latest news. HastyAwards.com. is always available if you're looking for the award side of things. But if my primary focus right now is just getting to the Olympic trials and getting through it and getting it all covered, and then on to Paris, where we're the only news outlet that has 3 press passes for the Olympic Games for the sport of swimming. Pretty unheard of, really. And I think that's just a testament of how not just the U.S. looks at the magazine, but really how the world looks at the magazine. It's like I said, we're riding a really good wave right now.
That's awesome. And I'll definitely have that information in the show notes. So enjoy the trials. If I don't talk to you before, definitely enjoy the Olympiad in Paris and all that will bring, and the enjoyment and the excitement. It's a quick couple weeks. I tell you what, it's every time I watch the Olympics, like, how is it over already? And then thankfully, I'll get some feeds and I'll watch the Special Olympics a week or two afterwards, so I can celebrate all athletes. But it goes quick. But I tell you what, it engulfs you. It's such a beautiful time when it happens. So thank you so much, Steve, for your time today. Really appreciate you, and continued success, and enjoy the Olympiad.
All right,
thanks, Michael. Are you enjoying this episode? Have you ever thought about creating an episode or hosting a podcast? What are you waiting for? You can get started today with a new company. You can get started right away with podup.com, PODUP.com. I wish podup.com existed when I launched my show back in 2017. It would have made my life a whole lot easier in launching this show. But here we are. And now, thankfully, PodUp exists to help you. PodUp is one of the sponsors of the Breakfast Leadership Show, and someday they want to sponsor your show. Starting as easy as creating an account at podup.com. They literally have everything you need to run a full professional show. PodUp has over 35 different tools with AI integration, and AI integration is a game changer, people. It's amazing what some of these tools are doing for podcasts. So definitely something you want to check out. So if you want to set up a free starter account or get a full paid account, I have a 15% off code for you to use. It's Breakfast Leadership 15, and you can use that code when you go to podup.com. So check out podup.com, or if you want a podcast that's done for you, where you pay an agency to do all the website, social media, and editing work, you don't have time to do all of that, you just want to record and send it and have somebody make it sound good, then you want to check out podallies.com. So PODALLIES.com. They're an agency run by the folks that build up the PodUp software right up from the beginning. So just go visit podallies.com and they'll make your show shine. So, and you can also get a 15% off for signing up there or with PodUp. Just make sure to use the discount code Breakfast Leadership 15. Can't wait to create with you and have you launch your podcast. Now let's get back to the show.
Thanks for listening to the Breakfast Leadership Show, part of the Breakfast Leadership Network. Visit breakfastleadership.com for tips on empowering your business and your life.